Welcome back. We're going to talk about now more details in how we form sperm and how we form sex hormones in males. Where, remember, we said that the testis is going to be the male gonad. It's going to be found in the testicle that has two main parts, not only the testis, but also the epididymis, which is going to be where sperm are stored and where they continue their maturation. In the testis, we have hundreds of seminiferous tubules, which are these tubes that are running in parallel and are coiled. So that's what you see filling this testis, are these seminiferous tubules. So the spermatogenesis is going to happen, the formation of sperm is going to happen in these tubules. And keep in mind as well that this process is going to be able to happen basically throughout the lifetime of a male once they've reached puberty. That males can remain fertile basically their whole adult lives. So if we take a section, if we cut through one of these seminiferous tubules, then we will see, as is on the title slide, these layers of forming sperm. That's the main cell type that you see in the seminiferous tubule are actually forming sperm. However, mixed in there and surrounding the sperm are Sertoli cells. So that's these pink cells. So they're the ones in contact with the germ cells, and they're the ones responding to FSH, follicle-stimulating hormone. They are going to not only be supporting the forming sperm, also making a protein called androgen-binding protein, which, as its name suggests, helps to bind testosterone to keep it in the area of the sperm so the testosterone can help the sperm mature. And the Sertoli cells are also going to convert testosterone to estrogen, which is going to also be important in the formation of sperm. Outside of the tubule, we're going to have Leydig cells, which are going to be the ones that are responding to luteinizing hormone and producing testosterone. They're also going to be secreting a hormone called DHT, dihydrotestosterone, which is a much more potent androgen than testosterone. These cells can make DHT because they have an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase. And the DHT is going to be very important for secondary male characteristics such as hair growth and things like muscle mass. So that DHT will also be important for the process. The testosterone is what's so important for forming the sperm. So we need FSH to initiate sperm differentiation, to start the process. We also need testosterone as well as estrogen to properly form sperm. And you can think about it as the fact that fertilizing an egg is not a very efficient process in terms of the number of sperm that are needed. So in normal semen, there's going to be 200 to 400 million sperm per 5 mils. That number will depend on the proliferation rate of the sperm as well as the frequency of ejaculation. So frequent ejaculation will result in lower sperm counts. But the number of sperm per mil that are considered in a male that's infertile is still 20 million sperm. So once you have less than 20 million sperm per mil, that's when you're considered infertile, because it takes many, many sperm in order to be able to fertilize an egg, just because it's such an inefficient process. Another thing to keep in mind is that the maturation of sperm takes 90 days. So that is going to include the time when they are going to be sitting in the epididymis, which are the tubes that are downstream of the testis as the sperm mature, and that they won't even completely mature until they enter the female reproductive tract, and more specifically enter the oviduct or the fallopian tube, where they will contact the cells of the oviduct and undergo a process called capacitation, which then makes the sperm able to fertilize the egg. So this is going to be in contrast to the female, where it's the production of the ovulated egg that's so inefficient. In the male case, the sperm production is efficient. It's the fertilization of the egg that requires so many sperm, and then only one is going to end up fertilizing the egg. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about androgens. So we've talked about testosterone is going to be important for spermatogenesis. It's also going to be important for creating a male during embryonic development, and then also important for feeding back to those kisspeptin neurons. But DHT is going to be what's important for external virilization, hair growth, things like that that are part of the secondary sexual characteristics. Keep in mind that these are steroids, so they're going to have a carrier in the blood, and they're going to act to change gene expression in their target cells. They'll be able to diffuse right through the membrane of the cell. And androgens are going to have anabolic actions, meaning that they're going to build structures, in this case, muscle mass, which is why men are going to have an increased muscle mass compared to women. If we add extra testosterone, that means we're going to reduce GnRH production, which will then cause a decrease in FSH and LH, a decrease in sperm production, which will decrease the size of the testis, and because of a decreased sperm count, but it will increase the size of the prostate, because the prostate is going to be an androgen responsive tissue, as we'll see in a minute. So adding excess testosterone can be it's not a widely used form of birth control, but it will decrease sperm production. However, that increased testosterone will act on androgen responsive tissues. And keep in mind, because sperm production takes 90 days, that the effect of using a birth control method that affects the production of sperm is not going to be effective until several months into the course of administration of the compound. So we're going to talk just briefly about androgen-dependent tissues. One are going to be the seminal vesicles, which are going to be glands that are providing a fructose-rich liquid that ends up being a large portion of the volume of semen. The prostate gland is also going to contribute an alkaline secretion that's going to be about 20% of volume, and it's going to be responsive to androgens such as DHT. And then we're going to have lots of androgen-dependent tissues that are responsible for the secondary sex characteristics. So muscle is going to be androgen-dependent, facial hair, and a deep voice will all be androgen-dependent processes. Keep in mind, we're not going to talk about it extensively, but the fact that estrogen is also very important in the male, and it's going to occur in tissues that express an enzyme called aromatase, which converts testosterone to estrogen. Bone is going to be one of those tissues that expresses aromatase so that it will convert testosterone to estrogen. Estrogen and testosterone are going to be needed to cause the growth of the skeleton, growth of the bones, make you taller. However, it's estrogen specifically that is needed to cause the epiphyseal growth plate to close, which happens at the end of puberty when you stop growing. So this plate will fuse at the end of the bones, which then prevents them from getting any longer. And that requires estrogen specifically. And so males with an estrogen receptor inactivation, meaning they can't respond to estrogen, or an aromatase inactivation, meaning they can't make estrogen to begin with. They can have growth of the skeleton because you can use testosterone to make the skeleton bigger, but they can't stop the growth of their skeleton because they have no estrogen. And so they will continue to grow throughout their adult lives without treatment because of the lack of estrogen and its role in stopping growth. So this is the conclusion then of the male system, where we've talked about how we're going to make testosterone right next to the spot where we're also forming sperm, and how it's going to be important for then differentiation of the sperm or formation of the sperm, and that we're also going to produce DHT, dihydrotestosterone, which is going to be important for looking like a male. And that we also need estrogen. And the example we discussed was in bone, in closing those epiphyseal growth plates.